Hi, I'm Tricia at Club Scrap and welcome to the Autumn Glow Card Kit Workshop. Our end aim is to create 12 beautiful cards together. I'll show you plenty of tips along the way. We'll sort the papers, trim them, score them, and turn them into those cards. Let's go ahead and get started. I have my kit ready to go here. I've got my instructions printed. Of course, you don't need to print your instructions. You could always use a device to kind of follow along because I'll give you all the measurements, all the scoring numbers that you need in order to be successful. And for now, I'm going to set aside the 12 envelopes that came in the kit, the ribbon and other embellishments like those really cool stickers. I have some tips for you about using those stickers as well, so stay tuned. And here I have my papers. Then you're going to need the Accordion Pocket File if you want to stay organized. Of course, it's not required, but it's just a nice tool to use. I'm going to place the lip of this underneath my guillotine style trimmer. I think this is a very essential tool. Love it. It's a workhorse, and if you don't happen to have one, check it out. I know you maybe already have a trimmer. I have a graveyard of trimmers that I don't like. This is one I've been using for more than a decade now, and I really appreciate its ability to give me a nice straight cut. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is sort the paper that came in the box into the order that we'll be trimming it. So I like to sort the paper while it's kind of upright and maybe in the crook of my arm here so that I can see it more easily. And let's go ahead and find one sheet of the dark orange. Now, how do you know the dark from the light? Well, let's take a look. Here we have the dark orange that has a texture on it, and the light orange is smooth. So grab one dark orange and then one yellow, and the yellow is definitely a nice sunny yellow, and it also has a texture. So when I place this on the trimmer, I'll just do it with the texture side facing down. Next up, grab a light orange and a plum. Now the plum paper too has a texture. It's more pronounced. It's almost like a felt-like finish on one side, and then it's smooth on the other. So I'll put the felt side facing down. Next up, we're back to the dark orange again, the light orange, one yellow, and one ivory. Then we'll grab another plum. It should be the last plain cardstock there. Then we have our two prints. We'll put those face down. For the Cutaparts, we're going to choose everything will fall into place first, and then we have the sheet that has a couple of extra fussy cut leaves on it. That'll be last. Face down. Take the entire stack, flip it back over to where we began with our dark orange. And when I'm trimming paper, I usually put the untrimmed papers to my left, and I put my instructions to my right, and that tends to work really well for me. Let's take our first sheet of dark orange, and we need to determine the grain direction because eventually we're going to be folding this paper. So what I want you to do, if you're new to this, is just hold the paper by the center of an edge and kind of give it a wiggle, and then hold it by the center of another edge and just compare the behavior of the paper in each direction. Like here, it's kind of noisy, kind of stiff. In here, it's very floppy. So once you determine which direction is most likely to flop, you want it to go into your trimmer in this way. So you want it curving most easily from left to right. That does correspond with an arrow pointing left to right on this document. Let's take the yellow and do the same exact exercise. Find your grain direction. I can tell right away this wants to go this way, and that's how it goes into the trimmer. Now, if you don't feel comfortable trimming two papers at the same time, totally okay. Just do one at a time, then rewind back to where we started, and then repeat with the second color. Okay, let's take both sheets now and slide them into the trimmer, making sure that they're level at the top here. And we're gonna cut this at 9 inches. So really make sure you're lined up, you're at the 9-inch mark, not the 9-centimeter mark over here, 9 inches. Then stabilize on that clear bar with your left hand, and then make the slice with your right hand. It's gonna drop down to the side and leave the paper right where it lands. Now take the pieces in the base of your trimmer and rotate them so they're horizontal. Let's trim at 11 and 5.5. Now you just made 2 sets of card bases. Let's just stack them and set them aside. They're going to be scored before we file them. So let's just make a little pile of things to be scored. Now this long narrow piece, I'm going to pop that in pocket D or pile D if you're not using the organizer. Just because I didn't give it a specific assignment, you might want to incorporate it later on. Totally your call. And then I'll take this long remaining narrow strip here. We're going to trim it horizontally at 9.5. and 4 3/4. So that's 4 plus 1, 2, 3 columns on the trimmer toward the left to grow it to 4 3/4. And now you have these 2 panels that are the same size. All of them go in pocket B, bravo. And then there's this smaller extra piece. You can pop that in pocket D. Now we have a new formula here, and I'm going to grab this light orange paper. Find your grain direction. Very stiff this way, very floppy this way. Now, the direction of the arrow has changed on my diagram to a vertical arrow, so I want the paper to be placed in the trimmer so it bends most easily like this. All right, so it's curving this way. And then grab the plum, get your grain. I want it also bending this direction real easily. Okay, let's cut this both at the same time if you feel comfortable at 11.5. 9 and 4.5. Now rotate the piece in the trimmer so it's horizontal. Cut at 10 3/4 and 8.5. The pieces in the base of your trimmer need to be scored. Then there's a larger rectangle that fell. That goes in pocket B, bravo. There's a smaller rectangle that fell. That's for D, David. Pick up the next pair of strips that are the same size here, and we're going to repeat that. So we'll cut at 10 3/4 and 8.5. Here's our piece that needs to be scored. Here is the wider piece that goes in pocket B, and then we have our narrow scraps for pocket D. This next widest remaining piece we'll trim at 10.5 and 5 1/4. Both of these pieces go in pocket A. There should be a total of 4 of them. And then you have this little guy that fell from the end. If you want to save it, you can pop it in D, along with this narrow strip, also D. The next diagram has us trimming dark orange again, and we need to make sure that it dips easily this way to match the arrow in our instructions. Let's grab the light orange and do the same thing. It's this way. Stack them neatly together. We'll cut at 11 3/4. It's going to take off a really little piece. And then 7. Rotate this larger piece and cut at 11 3/4 and 10. These large pieces become card bases that need to be scored. And then you have this narrow strip here, which we're going to cut at 5 1/4. This narrow strip goes in pocket A, and then there's this little, I guess it's a square, and 2 narrow strips can all go in pocket D. Next up, take our yellow and find the grain direction again, dipping easily top to bottom, and the same with the ivory. It's got to go this way, dipping. Stack neatly together, trim at 11 3/4 and 7. Rotate this large piece, trim at 11 3/4 and 10. 2 more card bases need to be scored, and then you have this narrow strip that will trim at 5 1/4. Pocket A on this one, and then you've got some little squares and really narrow strips for pocket D. Take this next strip and we'll cut it at 9.5 and 6 3/4. Take this large piece and the next one, and it's all going to go in pocket C. This last piece is a scrap and can go in pocket D. There are just 2 more narrow strips that can go into pocket D, and then we're going to enter with the plum. Now, this next step is not in the written instructions, but since you're with me, I want to show you a tip that's going to save us a little time and make things a little bit easier. Let's grab your score pal. I'll just set the score pal right on top of my trimmer and then find the grain direction of the plum paper so that it dips this way. In fact, every time you score, typically this is going to be the most ideal direction that your paper should be in the score pal, because you're going to be scoring in cooperation with the grain, which is always the best. And I'm going to have you score at 3 1/2. So just grab 3 1/2. Bring your scoring tool toward you. I've got a nice line in there, and then just keep the paper positioned as it is while you get rid of that score pal for now. And so my score line is here on the left side of my paper. Let's cut now at 11 1/4, 8 1/2, and 4. So you're going to be cutting right next to the score line, but not quite there. Okay, now this piece in the trimmer, rotate it so it's horizontal and trim at 8 and 4. Now all 3 of these pieces are scored and can be filed in pocket A. If you did not score them, you need to set them aside to be scored. So pocket A on those. This next strip, let's cut it at 9 1/2, 6 3/4, and 4. Now the 4-inch piece, I want you to rotate it so it's horizontal and cut it at 4. So you're making a square. This piece needs to be scored, so set it aside. You had a little scrap that fell from the end. I'm going to put that in D. The next 2 pieces that are the same size, pocket B. And then finally this last piece is a scrap for D. Now this next widest piece, I'll have you trim it at 9 and 4 1/2. 2 pieces that you made are the same for pocket B, bravo. And then all the remaining 2 pieces can go in D. We've made it to our print here, and we're going to cut this one at 9 1/2, just one of the prints at 9 1/2, 8, and 4. Then the 2 pieces that you just created are the same size. Stack them neatly and cut them in half at 6. You just made 4 panels here, all the same size for pocket C. Now this narrowest strip here, we're going to cut this one at 10 and 5. The 2 pieces that are the same, these little strips here, pocket A, and then you have a little rectangle. And believe it or not, this larger piece, this can all go in pocket D. Another print here, we're going to trim at 11 1/4, 9 1/4, and 5. This 5-inch piece, rotated so it's horizontal, quite a few cuts coming here. 10 1/2, 9, 6 3/4, 4 1/2, and 2 1/4. Now that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces that are the same for pocket A, and then another 2 pieces that are the same also for pocket A. Pick up the next strip, and we're going to trim on all the even numbers. That's nice and easy. So we'll cut at 10, 8, 6, 4, and 2. Gather up all of these pieces, going into pocket B, bravo. The next widest piece we'll cut at 8 1/2, and 4 1/4. These two pieces, pocket B again. There's a little rectangle here that's left over, plus the long narrow strip. You can plop that in D. Now it's time to trim our cut-aparts. So it says remove paper outside of corner cutting guides. It says that on every edge. So on this first slice, I'm just going to try to get close to the guide, but not right to it necessarily. Because then when I rotate this, I can see a lot better where that guide is here at the top and bottom edge of the stainless steel blade on my trimmer. So I got that pretty well lined up. Then I'll rotate again and line up this edge. Make sure you know where your blade cuts on your trimmer. It's one of the things I like about this trimmer too. I can see the edge of the blade. Now on this rotation, I'm going to look to my left at the 12 to make sure I'm lined up well, and then one last rotation to clean up that edge where we started. And that leaves me with just these little sniglets that I'm going to dispose of. And then when we start trimming this into individual pieces, make sure that this narrow strip is on your right. And I'll cut at 11 1/4, and then 8 and 4 1/4. Now rotate so it's horizontal, and let's trim at 10, 7 1/2, 5, and 2 1/2. That gives me a bunch of pieces that are the same size, 4 of them, going into pocket B, and the piece that's slightly smaller is C. Our next strip here, make sure the words as brightly are on the right, and we'll cut at 10, 7 1/2, 5, and 2 1/2. Gather all of these up, the 4 that are the same, pocket A, and there's one more narrow one that fell, that's pocket C again. Let's pick up this next strip and we will trim at 11 1/4, 7 1/2, 3 3/4. Gather the 3 larger pieces for pocket A. And there's this smaller piece, we're going to place that in D. And then this piece, I ended up using it in pocket C. So I'll put it in there. And now we are landing at our final sheet of cut-aparts. We have to do the same little ritual here and remove those outer edges so that we're aligned with the guide. Sometimes it requires you to just tilt the paper ever so slightly, just to level things off perfectly. And if this takes me less time than it takes you, no problem. Just pause the video until you get this work completed. And then you always want to start our trimming process with the narrow piece on the right, which is what we're going to do right now. And that will also be reflected in the diagram in your instructions. So this strip right here is on the right. We'll cut at 10 3/4, 9 1/4, 7 3/4, and 4 1/2. Rotate, and then the leaves will be on your right. We'll cut at 10, 7 1/2, 5, and 2 1/2. All of these larger pieces gathered into pocket C. And then you've got some leaves here. Those are both going to go in B. This next strip, make sure and every one come true this year. That should be on your right. We'll cut at 9, 9, and 5 1/4. This largest piece goes in C, Charlie, and then the medium-sized one goes in A, Alpha, and the smaller one goes back in C, Charlie. Now we have this strip here, which I'm going to place where it says thinking of you on the left. And let's cut at 8 1/2 and 4 1/4. Both of these pieces go in pocket B, the ones that match. And then these guys, we're going to separate them with scissors here just for now. We'll fussy cut them later. The small leaf goes in pocket A and the larger one in C, Charlie. Let's repeat this with the next set. So cut at 8.5 so that the little loose leaves are on the right, and then 4.25. Both of these the same, going into pocket B, bravo. And then once again, we'll separate the last two leaves here, the small one in A and the large one in C. This last piece, C also. That concludes all of the trimming required for all 12 of your cards. I hope that you hung in there with me. And of course, you can just always push pause as much as you need through the rest of this process to work at your very own pace. Let's swap our trimmer for our score pal one more time. From now on, that accordion pocket file is going to lay on its back. It's the trimmer that holds it up vertically, but now if you're using this, just kind of put it flat on its back. And let's go ahead and grab that last 4x4 plum. Now what you want to do is kind of test the grain direction of this paper again. One way when I push in, it's more stiff, and the other way it's a little easier to push in. And that's how we want to put the square into our score pal for that final piece that needs to be scored at 3.5. And I scored it with the texture side facing up, and that's going to go into pocket A. Now, if we hadn't done that trick before where I went down the whole entire sheet, we would have had to score each additional piece. Now we only have to score one, so it saved us a little bit of time. Next up, we have our 7x10 card base here, and ivory is on the top for me, and I'm going to score this horizontally at 5. And just leave that out for a second. Next up, I have yellow. Make sure the texture side is facing up. Here's your 10, here's your 7. We'll score at 5. Then we'll score our light orange at 5. And the dark orange, texture side up at 5. Gather up all of the pieces and place them in pocket C, Charlie. Now we have these kind of oddly sized pieces. It's going to be 4.5 by 8.5, and I want you to score at 6.25 on the horizontal. Texture side up here. Now I've got a light orange, 6.25. Now I have another plum at 6.25, and I have another light orange horizontally at 6.25. All 4 of these go in pocket B, bravo. And finally, I've got this 5.5 by 9. We're going to score this one horizontally at 2.75 on the textured side and 7. Then grab the dark orange, 2.75 and 7. Kind of weird measurements there too, but don't worry about it. Then I'll grab the other yellow, score at 2.75 and 7. And finally, the last piece, again at 2.75 and 7. All 4 of these go into pocket A, and now we're ready to assemble our cards. So I'll put the score pal away, and I'm going to empty everything out of pocket A as well. Once pocket A is emptied, just take a few minutes and sort through all of the pieces that are in the pocket and organize them by size. So I've got everything sorted out here, and then I'm just going to lay out my card bases with the orange, the dark orange, the yellow, and another yellow and a dark orange like so. Next up, each one of these cards is going to get one of those scored plum squares. And then I'll distribute also a plum wider strip of plum, then a wider strip of light orange, and then light orange and plum again here. Then you have some narrower strips here. I'm going to place a yellow on this one, ivory here, and then a dark orange and light orange on these two. For the prints, there are a set of wide prints and then a set of narrow prints. For sentiments, on the outside, we're going to have just a little note to brighten your day on both of these on the top, and then don't count the candles on the bottom. Then you've got thinking of you and sending hugs on the top, and just enjoy the glow on the bottom. I also added those 2 smaller leaves to the 2 cards on the bottom. Now from your envelopes, you have a series of 4 each of 3 sizes. So I'm going to take the smallest size, and all of these cards are assembled the same. So our MO here is to take the contents of the 4th pile and just shove them all into one of the envelopes so that all the parts and pieces are there. And then I'm going to take the next envelope and slide in the contents of the 3rd pile, if I think 1, 2, 3, 4. And this will coincide with all of the artwork and images in your instructions. This is the order that I have them in there. So that should keep us on track. And then we're going to assemble this one together. And if you want, then when we're done with this one, you can pause the video, assemble cards 2, 3, and 4 in the same way. Rewind if you need to for more tips. Otherwise, move on to the next set of cards. And then at a later time, when you're in the mood, you'll have a perfectly finished sample, as well as 3 additional cards that you can make. So it's up to you how you want to handle this next step. For starters here, I will take this card base and flip it so that the bump of the score line is facing up, and then I'm going to fold in on that. And then on this side, I'm going to do the same thing, fold in on that score line. And that's going to create 2 different sized flaps. One is wider, one is narrower. The wide one will be on the top and on the left. Then I'll take this wider purple or plum panel here. I'll add some adhesive and then attach it to this flap. It should nest perfectly. Then the other yellow panel, I will apply adhesive to that and add it to the right, more narrow flap of the card. And yes, indeed, that fits too. There are corresponding printed panels, so I can grab those. I'll add adhesive to the narrow and the wide at the same time, just to save a minute or 2. And the narrow one obviously corresponds on the right. And then the wide goes on the left. Okay. Then we have our outer sentiment here. I took this taffeta ribbon and I just cut enough so that I can wrap it around the corner. Just kind of a real informal, sweet little addition. I'll take my tape here from my dispenser, kind of grab that corner, bring it around to the back, and then secure those ends. It's also important to be mindful of where this corner ends up so it's not going to be visible from this side of the card. So this could be moved and trimmed just a little bit more to keep that from showing past the flap on the left side of the card. Now the distance from the bottom of the card to where this panel will be centered is 7/8 of an inch. So that's 7 boxes on my ruler, plus I'm centered at 0 here with 2 1/8 is my reading on each side. And then I'll be 7/8 from the end, or centered. Again, it's going to put me at 1 1/4 inches from the left and right edges of this panel. Now when I add adhesive to this, I need to make sure I don't go past the seam of the card. So I'll just be thinking about that, be mindful of that when I'm adding it to the back, just on the counter on the left side only. So now my ruler is ready at 7/8 from the bottom edge. And then the left edge of this is going to go at 1 1/4. I do have a video about how to use our grid rulers, but that sequence of numbers helps us to make sure that this is centered onto the card base. Now I have a really fun trick for you for the inside of this card. It starts with this plum panel. And I'm going to go ahead and fold to bury that score line, bury the bump of the score line inside of the fold. Now situate this panel so that the flap is on the left, and that should give you a spot within where this sentiment's going to fit right into it. And again, the tab needs to be on the left. Okay, then this piece right here is going to rest up against the left flap of the card, like so. To center it from top to bottom, you'll need that ruler resting at 3/4 of an inch, and that's kind of where this tab is going to go. So basically, I will add some of my bookbinding glue, which it's a little more forgiving actually on the initial, and then it just stays really well. You could use your favorite adhesive here too, but I do like the bookbinding glue. So notice I have the adhesive on that tab, and then I'm going to place it 3/4 of an inch up from the bottom edge. And I also want to make sure that this isn't going to interfere with the fold at all. I want this to be able to close easily. Okay, so now it's just kind of flopping around there, right? Open up the card, and this narrow flap here, I'm going to take my bookbinding glue and add a small amount on the bottom edge of this narrow flap and at the top edge. Then, making sure that this is flat, I'm just going to close this, and it's going to trap this kind of behind my little flap. Give it a second, and then that will just slide in and out of there and just kind of give the card a really sweet little kinetic effect. It's nothing complicated, right? But it sure is sweet. You could also put a little gift card in here. It'll hold that as well, but just kind of a nice kinetic greeting on the outside and inside there. On this card, I added a sticker right here into the lower left corner. Here, I wrapped the lower left corner and tucked this little leaf underneath it because the text was on the top half of the sentiment. Once again, I've got the cute little sticker in the lower corner, and same thing on this one. Now, with these stickers, it can be kind of a challenge sometimes to remove the sticker from the backing. So if I were to want to attach this right here, one of the best ways I have found is to just grab some cellophane tape and then just like stick it to the top of the sticker and pull back. And that will help you easily separate the backing from the sticker itself. Boy, that time it really worked well. And then I'll just get rid of the tape, and I can add the sticker to the lower left flap of the card if you want to. Really has a beautiful look, doesn't it? I love this structure. I hope you do too. I will set this card aside with the remaining envelope and the other 3 prepared envelopes. So you have your sample and everything you need to know to assemble the other ones, and we'll move on to pocket B. Go ahead and empty that pocket and then organize all of the little pieces in that pocket by size. There will be a lot of pieces in pocket B. Sorry. All right, with everything sorted out by size, I'm going to take my card bases. I'll start out with a light orange here, plum, light orange again, and plum. Okay, next up, I'm going to take a set of these 2 plum and 2 light orange and match them up with the card base. Then you have a series of these printed panels. Each card will receive 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Deal them out like cards. Next up, you have a larger plain panel here. I'm going to take the yellow and pair it up on the light orange, and then the dark orange gets paired with the rust. Next up, you should have 4 of these plum panels, 1 for each card. Then you've got everything will fall into place in the lower left and upper right. Then may cherish memories on the upper left and lower right. You've got with deepest sympathy, upper left, lower right, and thinking of you on the opposite cards. Now you've got a set of these 2 larger leaves here. I'm going to separate them just slightly with scissors, and those are going to go here and here. From your stack of envelopes, this one is the medium-sized one, and I'll just slide all of this into the envelope, the 4th, and then the 3rd pile. Again, this order reflects the order that they're shown in the instructions. And then here you have your 2nd card. We'll set these aside and go to our card that we'll do together. This card might look a little bit complicated. It's really quite simple. We're going to start with adding the sentiment to the plum panel. And I have a fun little ribbon trick. This one was inspired by our Julie Heyer, who works here at Club Scrap. She's always got fun ribbon ideas. So I'm going to stretch some grosgrain ribbon wider than the width of my sentiment here. So it's just nested. I'm going to grab 2 little pieces of tape and bring these around to the back. I guess I only need 1 piece. I might have to loosen that up in a little bit based on my plan. Then I'm going to take another piece of this ribbon. I'm going to do a fresh angle cut here on this. About a little less wide than the sentiment. And then I'm going to come in with my jute. And I'm going to scoot underneath the ribbon that's wrapped, as well as the extra piece I've added to this ribbon. And I'm just going to tie a little knot within the center there so I can secure the second piece of ribbon to the card. Okay, and then I'm just going to make a double knot here so that it will hold. I'm not going to bother with a bow. There's already kind of a bow on it that we created by adding this little piece of jute. Isn't that sweet? And then I'll just trim the tails. Now we can take this prepared piece, nest it, and then add it to the yellow with adhesive here. Darling. Okay. Here I have my card base, which I can flip to find the bump of the score line and then fold. And I'll burnish that fold with my bone folder. And then we have this other little panel plus the 2 prints here. So I'm going to take my prints and put some adhesive on each. One of them is going to be added to the loose panel. And the other is going to be added to the top of my card. This little flap right here. Okay, next I'm going to turn this card. Do you see this inner sentiment here? It's going to be placed right below this flap, leaving about 1/8 of an inch of a border left, right, and top. So I will add adhesive to my sentiment. Pay attention. It's just kind of easier to see this way. Pay attention to the edge of your flap, and then it goes 1/8 of an inch below that. Okay, now I have this sentiment, and this is just a really fun trick for creating this hinge card. I know that I need to place this 3/4 of an inch from the folded edge and centered left to right, but the way I have this positioned, it's kind of top to bottom. So on my ruler, my reading on the left is 2 1/4. This one is 2 1/4, and I'm 3/4 of an inch from the edge. I'm going to add this. Put a little adhesive just on this top edge of this panel. And again, I'm working comfortably. This is a vertical card, but I'm just have it positioned horizontally so I can see. So now what I've done is attached the sentiment flap to the top flap. So again, there's a 3/4 of an inch here, here, and here. Perfectly centered. Finally, I'm going to take this bottom section and place it level with the bottom of the card and behind the sentiment, and make sure it's nice and lined up. Then you can open the card. Once again, I'm going to work horizontally here so I can add a little adhesive to this edge here of my sentiment, just the bottom edge. And then I'm just going to realign everything, make sure that bottom is level, and then I can attach this piece. And now I have my vertical hinge card. You'll make 2 vertical and 2 horizontal hinges. Isn't that sweet? So that is the newest way I've developed to attach them. Of course, you could eyeball this. You could try to do all of the edges at the same time. I don't know. I just find that once I get this centered in the right place, it's so much easier just to put adhesive on this and smash it onto the bottom panel when it's level at the bottom with the bottom of the card. I hope that makes sense. I just discovered that method this last time and thought it was worth sharing. And I love how Jacqueline designed this so that the leaves kind of peek out from behind the card. It's just so sweet. So this one we made together, I'm going to set it with the others and I'll show you the remaining card styles. So you make 2 of these vertical. I did the same exact treatment with the bow. Then on my horizontal hinges, I did the same again, but I kept the bow kind of over to the right, the same technique with the jute and the extra piece. And then I tucked the fussy cut leaf behind it, and just kind of be aware where you put your adhesive. I use bookbinding glue to add this guy, and then your sentiment is going to be vertically in the middle. Isn't that sweet? Here's the plum one. So again, just use that first card as your template and follow along. The rest of the cards, are assembled the exact same way, just the only difference is vertical versus horizontal. Following along with the same exact routine, we'll empty everything from pocket C, and also being mindful that if you have things in pocket D that you like and you want to incorporate into your cards, by all means do so. Add more prints, use some of the leftover pieces. If you have a leaf-shaped punch or die cut you want to use, think about that. Otherwise, the pieces left over in pocket D are so small anyway, you could probably just get rid of them at the end of your card making session. All right, let's get sorting everything from pocket C. Okay, let's take our card bases and we'll place them, let's see, dark orange, light orange, yellow, and ivory. Those are going to be our 5x7 card bases. Then they each get a lovely panel. So we'll go yellow, ivory, light orange, and dark orange. Next, each card gets a print. So let's distribute a print and then another panel that's a little smaller. And again, we're sorting the colors here. So light orange, dark orange, ivory, and yellow. And I acknowledge that I had an ivory one here, but I'm switching that out to a dark orange so we can have more colors included on the card. Here we've got Make-A-Wish, Time to Celebrate Our Season, then another Time to Celebrate Our Season, and Make-A-Wish. The inner sentiments for these cards were all kind of different sizes because I was dealing with whatever paper I had remaining in order to get these cards done. So on this first one, we'll put the smaller, and may everyone come true this year. Then I have May Your Birthday Shine as Brightly as Autumn's Glow. May your birthday shine as brightly as autumn's glow, and then may everyone come true this year. The two little fussy cut leaves, totally optional. I use them on card 2 and 3. And then each one of these will get one of the gold leaf die cuts. I used the wide printed strip on this card, trimmed it to 7, and I used the narrower one on this card. And so we can now take this envelope with all of our pieces distributed here. We can take the largest envelope, and I'll put the ivory base card in first. And then the yellow base and all of its fun components. So fun. I love this. And then our light orange, and we can assemble the dark orange card together. The first thing we'll do is find the bump of the score line on this dark orange card base. I always like to line up the corners carefully, and then I'll burnish the score line with my bone folder. Next, we can nest the yellow panel right onto the card base. I'm not really worried about ribbon or anything like that yet at this point. The reveal is only 1/8 of an inch, so it's 1 cube on your grid ruler if you're using that for alignment purposes. We can also safely attach the printed panel. This next printed panel is going to be attached 1/2 of an inch from the edge of the card base. So that's 4 cubes. We'll take the Make-A-Wish panel and attach it to the nesting panel for this one. And I'm going to go grab my taffeta one more time. I love this ribbon. And I'm going to cut 2 lengths, just a little wider than the sentiment itself. And I'm going to make like a double looped bow. So I'm going to fold one of these lengths in half, and I want the feeling where this loop, this fold here, is aligned with the center of the sentiment. So Make-A-Wish, there's my loop. It's a little off-centered. I'll wrap these tails around to the back and secure it with some cellophane tape. Now, I'm going to take the second ribbon, loop it through the first, and I'll support this ribbon here on one side and then pull to the other. And then I'm going to wrap this around to the back and secure it also. That's going to be placed in the center of the card, but before we center that, I'm going to take this piece here and grab my trimmer for just a moment. And I'm going to cut this at 6 3/4 of an inch. So that's from the tip of the leaf is where my 6 3/4 is. And then notice the edge of this band is aligned with the straight edge of the trimmer. Okay, so this is 6 3/4 and this little piece fell off. We need both pieces for the next step. Now I'm going to take this long piece here and I think I'll use my bookbinding glue. And I'll just add the glue to the strip and then to some of the spots on the leaves just so that they're secured. And I'm going to use my ruler here, measuring 3/4 of an inch from the right edge of the card base. And you can eyeball this. I just know that some of you like to have those measurements, so that's why I'm giving them to you. I'm going to align the straight edge at the bottom with the edge of the yellow panel. Rest it against the ruler's edge so I know it's level and straight. And then you can move the ruler aside to place the rest of the piece down. Okay, then I've got my Make-A-Wish. I'm going to put adhesive on that. This panel is going to go 1 1/8 of an inch from the bottom edge of the card, or an inch from the yellow panel, however you want to look at it. That is so pretty. Now don't forget about this lovely guy. This we're going to tuck kind of behind toward the left of our cute little ribbon here. So I'll once again add some adhesive to the back of the remaining part of that die cut. I think that metallic adds such a nice touch. I'm just going to conceal that edge here and add that. So lovely. On this piece, I really liked this leafy tree. It's one of my favorite features of the strip, and I kind of wanted to make sure I saved it. So I'll add some glue just to the part that's level with the card base itself. Flip this back on over, and then I'll just grab my ruler to make sure I'm not running up or downhill. Oh, and I was. Every single time I think I'm straight, I'm not. And then I'll flip the card over, and you can use your trimmer or scissors to cut any of the excess of that strip from the card. Probably would use my trimmer under normal circumstances. Like, in other words, when I'm not filming. Okay, and then we have our sentiment, and may everyone come true this year. Of course, you can add your stickers, you can add whatever you want to the inside of the card. And that is card 1 of this beautiful set. I added a sticker here in the lower left corner. One of the things that I thought about later on is I could have put the sticker onto a piece of ivory paper, maybe from Pocket D, and had a little backing to it to make it pop a little bit more. I think that will look really, really nice. You know, just because I did it once one way doesn't mean I can't change my mind in the future, right? Okay, so this gets paired up with our final envelope and then our little samples. I'll show you the rest of these cards in the set. Here's the horizontal version. The measurements were the same for this edition, but here I have this tucked behind the panel, and I wrapped this with the jute. I did the same on the second card. I did something from Pocket D here, added the little leaf on the inside of both of these. So you can kind of see how I used the extra pieces there. And this is basically a replica with, again, a beautiful leaf backed with the ivory. It looks so, so nice in that. And don't forget the little cellophane tape trick that works so well. And that's all I have for you in this Autumn Glow Card Kit Workshop. I hope you enjoyed all of these card structures and how easily and quickly we could put them together. And remember that these instructions are recyclable. So you could go to your stash, grab a bunch of papers that coordinate and then just replace them one for one. And if you happen to have stamps, you can stamp your own sentiments. I did a really cool version of this with the Toile Card Kit Workshop instructions, Christmas papers, and Christmas stamps, and turned everything into a set of 12 really beautiful Christmas cards. So I've proven it works. Prove to yourself that it works. Grab the same exact formula and grab some more papers. In fact, we do release a stamp sheet that coordinates with every monthly collection, and this month is no exception. So you can also grab the Autumn Glow stamps. They're absolutely gorgeous. They're gonna make beautiful cards. So check that out as well. And if you want to make pages or projects with this gorgeous theme, we also have an Autumn Glow page kit as well, and tons of book projects that you can create using that page kit as well. So again, I'm Tricia Morris from Club Scrap. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're not already a subscriber of this channel, make sure you hit subscribe. And if you're not a member of Club Scrap, why not? Give our club a try if you haven't already. We'd love to welcome you as a member of the Club Scrap family. I look forward to seeing you again in another workshop. And until then, happy creating.